I'm going to start this video by showing you the correct way to pronounce the name of Ramses the Great. Up until now, you've probably heard it pronounced in this way: Uza Maatre Setepenre Ramses Meriamun, or even Uza Matra Setepenra Ramses Meriamun. However, the actual way this name would have been vocalized is Washmuaria Shatapnaria Riamashesha Miamana. In Egyptian hieroglyphs, we don't have the benefit of understanding which vowels are placed in between the consonants, so his name is most commonly pronounced as Ramesses. However, we have his name written on the Hittite treaty cuneiform tablet of the Battle of Kadesh, which has a consonantal writing system. Therefore, we know his name is pronounced Riamashesha. We can take this one step further because his name was often shortened to just Shesha. In the papyrus Anastasia 1, we see his shortened name used 3 times. What is it like, this Simira of Shisha? Come, let me tell you many things as far as the fortress of the Way of Horus. I begin with the dwelling of Shisha. Come now to the region of Uto of Shisha, in his stronghold of Washmuaria, life, prosperity, health. The Greeks knew him as Sesoosis or Sesostris, always emphasizing the 2 syllable shortening of the end of his name. The reason I explain all of this is because Shisha is in the Bible. I'll just read 2 Chronicles chapter 12 and verse 2. And it came to pass that in the 5th year of King Rehoboam, Shishak, king of Egypt, came up against Jerusalem because they had transgressed against the Lord. This Bible verse does not actually say Shishak, it says Shisha. If we look at the Paleo-Hebrew of the name Shishak, we have Shan, Yed, Shan, and Kub. I realize these might sound a little different to how you recognize the character to sound, but I'm pronouncing the letters in the way that I was taught. But anyway, in the 12th century BC, the symbol now used for a Kub would have been used to represent an U, or more commonly known as the Wav, which represents an unknown vowel sound. We can demonstrate this from the Lachish for Ostrakon. At some point in the 10th century BC, it became the symbol for the Kub. We know this because of the Isbet Sartar Ostrakon. The events of 2 Chronicles chapter 12 took place in the 10th century BC. It looks as though the scribes copying all the text from that period copied Shisha's name without changing the Kub symbol into the symbol for U, which would give us a new pronunciation of Shishak. This is the mistake that Jean-Francois Champollion did not pick up on when he identified Shoshenk as Shishak. Had he understood that the name he was reading in the Bible was Shisha, he would have immediately identified this pharaoh as Ramesses or Riamashesha. One way we have to measure how rich an Egyptian pharaoh was is by the amount of temple building they could afford to carry out. On this basis, Ramesses II, or Shisha, is the most notable in Egyptian history. I'll just read 2 Chronicles chapter 12 and verse 9. So Shishak, king of Egypt, came up against Jerusalem and took away the treasures of the house of the Lord, and the treasures of the king's house he took all. He carried away also the shields of gold which Solomon had made. Shisha stole Solomon's riches. This is how he was able to build all those monuments in Egypt. This could not have been Shoshenk, who was a pauper by comparison. For those of you now saying that Solomon and Ramesses never existed in the same time period, my very short reply to this is yes, they did. I've done videos on ancient Egyptian chronology demonstrating the errors in the conventional timeline, but I'll go over 2 points very quickly in this video. 925 BC is an anchor point in Egyptian history that has caused damage to the timeline. This date originated from the Bible. I'll quickly read 2 Chronicles chapter 12 and verse 2 again. And it came to pass that in the 5th year of King Rehoboam, Shishak, king of Egypt, came up against Jerusalem because they had transgressed against the Lord. Year 5 of Rehoboam is 925 BC. Champollion identified Shishak as Shoshenk because Shoshenq had a military campaign in Canaan. However, on closer inspection, he never campaigned in Jerusalem. Champollion then dated the beginning of the 22nd dynasty to 945 BC, which to this day has never been corrected. This time period should be attributed to the reign of Shisha, who we now have placed further back in history. Just to show you how we have such a different date for Ramesses the Great in history, we need to go back to the date we have for the beginning of the 18th dynasty of 1550 BC. Sophic dating was used to establish the year 1517 BC as year 9 of Amenhotep I, which would allow us to backdate the start of the 18th dynasty to 1550 BC. They used the papyrus Ebers to confirm this. Well, many Egyptologists now agree that the Sophic date on this papyrus cannot be trusted, as it doesn't seem to reference the rising of Sirius at all. Despite knowing this fact, the regnal dates of all the kings of the 18th dynasty were added up to give an approximation of the start of the 19th dynasty as 1300 BC. Scholars were then able to pinpoint a date for Ramesses II through the papyrus Leiden, which was dated to his 52nd year in power because of a series of lunar calendar months recorded in the papyrus that repeats itself on a 25-year cycle. With the now incorrect assumption that the beginning of the 19th dynasty was circa 1300 BC, they could place his 52nd year in 1228 BC, placing year 1 of his reign at 1279 BC. This whole system for dating Egyptian history is a house of cards, based on anchor points in history with no solid foundation. If we went back to using Champollion's method of dating Egypt by using biblical synchronisms, we could correctly identify Shisha as the pharaoh that stole Solomon's riches, bringing Ramesses' date centuries lower in history. His conventional date has no solid foundation, as I've shown that it's based on the incorrect means of dating the 18th dynasty and subsequently the 19th. In previous videos, I have shown independent means of dating Shisha to Solomon's time period outside of the Bible, while showing the correct time period for Shoshenq and who he actually was in the Bible. I'll continue to do videos showing Israelites hidden in Egyptian history due to mistakes we have in chronology, but I wanted to do this short video to highlight the Ramesses connection with Solomon, given our understanding of how we would have pronounced his name back then. All praises to the Most High.